It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the three films of April 22nd, 2005. This time around, we've got a political thriller with Sean Penn and Nicole Kidman, the last film directed by Sidney Pollack, a romantic comedy with Ashton Kutcher and Amanda Peet, and a comedy with Anthony Anderson, being kidnapped by Jay Moore, and also a lot of other familiar names in a film that is very reminiscent of something like Ruthless People and 9 to 5, among many other movies, but does it mean any of these movies are good? Well, let's go ahead and start with the first movie and find out. This is Nicole Kidman and Sean Penn in The Interpreter. So as you get a sense from the trailer there, political intrigue and deception unfold inside the United Nations, where a U.S. Secret Service agent played by Sean Penn, is assigned to investigate an interpreter, who's played by Nicole Kidman, who overhears an assassination plot. So there's a little bit of the Manchurian Candidate mixed in with a criminally underrated John Travolta, Brian De Palma movie from the 80s, Blowout, as well as a little bit of the Bourne style, I guess. Not really much of an action film in general, but the two things that I really compare this movie to mostly is the Manchurian Candidate and Blowout, which are far superior movies to this. I mean, it's cool that this is the first film shot inside the United Nations, and it's also notable as the final film directed by the late great Sidney Pollack. But I wish his career kind of ended on a better note, because the film itself really is pretty lame for the most part. There's not really a whole lot there that's very interesting, intriguing in terms of like the tension. Like, you don't really feel like the tension is there in general. Like, it just feels like a film that is been there, done that. And this is something that probably could have made for like an interesting miniseries on TV at the time, like maybe ABC or Fox, something to be with aside from like 24. But as far as the movie itself goes, it's pretty bland, right? Really, there's not really a whole lot there that makes it unique or anything interesting. And Nicole Kidman and Sean Penn, God bless their souls, they're trying their best in this movie, but there's just nothing there for them really to do. The one person who really does come out of this relatively unscathed, and actually is the best thing about it, is Catherine Keener, who really had a pretty good year in 2005, because she'll be in the 40-Year-Old Virgin later on. But I really thought she was the big breakout star of this movie. She really carried the load against people like Sean Penn and Nicole Kidman, and she really is the one thing I remember from this movie a lot. But other than that, though, everything else is kind of bland, forgettable, nothing that spectacular in any way, shape, or form, and that's just kind of how I feel about this movie. I wish Sidney Pollack's career had ended on a much better note than this, but it's by far not the worst thing that a director did before they eventually passed away. We'll eventually get to some of those later on down the road as well. We've talked about some of the past as well, but none I can think of at the top of my head right now. But I digress. That is The Interpreter. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Ashton Kutcher and Amanda Peet in A Lot Like Love. This is a pretty lame movie, man. Like, you see there in the trailer, you have Ashton Kutcher and Amanda Peet as two individuals whose relationship slowly evolves from lust to friendship to romance over the course of 7 years. And it's pretty interesting the most interesting thing I can say about this movie is that it reminds me a lot of Windy City, that terrible 1984 melodrama Cinema Snob reviewed, Brad Jones reviewed it back in the day, and it's just like, it's one of those movies where literally nothing happens, and you do not buy into the chemistry of any of the romantic leads in that movie, John Shea and Kate Capshaw. And especially with this movie, yeah, you definitely feel like you don't really feel like a connection is there, and you just feel like these guys are in a way, they're kind of made for each other, because they're either really bland or they're really unlikable. I mean, they're just these two, Ashton Kutcher and Amanda Peet. Their characters are just so detestable to watch in this movie. And coincidentally, Windy City was produced by Army and Bernstein. Guess who one of the producers of this movie is? Army and Bernstein. So yeah. So it's intertwined it's intertwined all together, but the movie itself really is nothing great. It's a pretty bland movie. Like I said, the relationship is not good whatsoever. Like, you really don't care whether or not these two are going to get together at the end, because you can't really buy into their chemistry. Excuse me. It's so boring that I have to burp for you. But anyway, where was I? You can't get into the chemistry because these characters really are not likable. It's a boring movie, too, because these are just two bland people with nothing intriguing about their lives in general. They're just they're just really just the same type of people we've seen in melodramatic romantic comedies time and time again. Like, this is trying to be something like in the veins of something like When Harry Met Sally or Annie Hall. And, you know, those movies work because they have really good talent behind the scenes and a good cast to work off. I mean, Rob Reiner or Woody Allen, those are people who could tell a simple love story and make it interesting. Hell, Richard Linklater made 3 movies of people just walking around the city of Paris. And that's it. Like, with the Before Sunrise trilogy, which is still incredible. You can't get it with a director like this. This is Nigel Cole, who... It's a shame, because the last movie he directed I really liked, which was Calendar Girls. And he also did Saving Grace. But other than that, everything else he's done since then has not been that great in general. And, yeah, like I said, it's just a really lazy, bland romantic comedy that just wants to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. I guess if there's anything that's of notable interest about this particular movie, it's got a good cast in it. You know, you see Kutcher and Pete, you see Catherine Hahn, Cal Penn's in here, Ali Larter, Taryn Manning, Moon Bloodgood, Norman Reedus. Most notably, Meghan Markle. That Meghan Markle is in this movie playing. This is literally what the character's name is, Natalie, the hot girl in quotation marks. And yeah, that's the only thing I remember about this movie in general, was the fact that she was in it. But other than that, though, this is a pretty lazy movie, a pretty bland movie. If there was something of interest going on here, I believe in the chemistry of the 2 leads, I'd probably say it's much better than people let on. But no, this is about as bland, as forgettable as you could possibly get. So yeah, this is one you might want to avoid like the plague. And speaking of avoiding things like the plague, that could be the same thing that we can say about our last movie too, the star-studded King's Ransom. You would almost swear that this movie was written by white people in general, but nope. The writer and director of this movie are black, and especially the director of this movie was a protege of Spike Lee. Shame on all these people who made this movie. I'm not just talking about the writer and director, everybody who's involved in this movie, because good lord, this was a disaster. So you have Anthony Anderson as a wealthy, selfish, obnoxious businessman who's about to divorce his wife, Renee, played by Kalita Smith. She plans to ruin him financially during the court proceedings, and King is willing to do anything to protect his fortune. He enlists his mistress, Peaches Clark, played by Regina Hall, and her brother Herb, played by Charlie Murphy, to stage a mock kidnapping. So, hi, ruthless people. They are to make and receive a huge ransom demand, which would help keep the money safe from his wife. Unfortunately for him, 2 other people have similar plans to kidnap him. Angela, played by Nicole Ari Parker, an aggravated employee, and Corey, played by Jay Moore, a good-natured yet hapless nobody who lives in his grandmother's basement and needs $10,000 after being threatened by his adopted sister. This is a movie that features, like I said, Anthony Anderson, Jay Moore, Kalita Smith, Donald Faison, Regina Hall, Nicole Ori Parker, Loretta Devine, Charlie Murphy, Leela Arsery, Brooke D'Orsay. Like, good people involved in here that I've seen in much better movies, but this is just not it. This is about as horrible and as poorly put together as you get. I stopped it at that line by Loretta Devine, who I love. I love her as a character actress. I've seen her in so many movies, and that was the moment where I just said, I just had to stop, because, like, that is such a bland, lazy joke that, again, you would think that this was a movie completely written by people who were not black, but no. Writer and director are black, and the writer of this is actually somebody who wrote for Kenan and Kel. And like I said, the director of this is a protege of Spike Lee, having worked on several movies such as Mo Better Blues, Malcolm X, and Jungle Fever. And yeah, this is probably his biggest film as a director as a whole, except for maybe 17 Again for Showtime, which featured Tia and Tamara Mowry. He also did Book of Love, which I've never heard of, and A Beautiful Soul, which, again, is something I never heard of. But this is probably his most notable film. And that's a shame, man, because you're a protege of Spike Lee, and this is the best you can do? Like, this is about as lazy and as bland of a movie as you could possibly get. It's really, really bad. Like, A Lot Like Love was at least trying, Nobody is trying in this movie here, and this thing's not even that long of a movie. It's an hour and a half long, but it's so tedious and so bland and so stupid and so unbelievably ridiculous, and how lazy it is. Like, it's just unbearable to watch. I barely got through it the first time I watched it because everybody in here is just so stupid. No matter who you are in this movie, you're written to just be a stereotype or just be somebody who says a bad joke. It's a terrible movie, man. I hate this movie so much. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And it's surprisingly not one of the worst. It's amazing how this isn't one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Like, it has to be, but it could be pretty high up there if it really needed to be. I mean, that's how I feel about this movie. It's funny because as of the time I'm doing this, I'm about to start doing the top 30 worst movies of all time on the Reviewing Network Talks About. But this one is surprisingly not on the list as far as I'm concerned. But if it's not there, it should be pretty damn close, because this is about as lazy and as bad of a movie as you can get. Not funny, not clever, just a mess of a film. I hate this movie so much. Everybody who is involved in this should be ashamed of themselves, big time. Just avoid this one like the plague, man. Seriously. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. The next time we meet, we'll wrap April up with two notable movies. We have The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and we also have Ice Cube taking over the role of Vin Diesel's character from Triple X in Triple X State of the Union. So we'll take a look at both of those movies on the next episode. Okay, technically, he's not really playing the same character from that Vin Diesel played in Triple X. It's another movie where, Vin Diesel didn't want to do the sequel for Triple X, so they said, Ice Cube, come on in here. So wanted to clarify that first of all. But either way, we will take a look at both of those movies coming up on tomorrow's show, so be on the lookout for that. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.